Welcome, Patriots. The deep freeze has started to thaw, so I'm back out on the No Shoes Bar and Grill patio. Happy about it. It's still in like the upper 40s, but a lot better than a few days ago when it was like 12. Yeah, it's rough stuff. Fortunately, there's been plenty to keep you occupied inside, Lots of news. Trying to get everything organized here. I'm doing better, but, I'm hoping I can get some folks tuned in. A few things to talk about. Nothing too terribly bad, but definitely going to get out while the sun was shining. And I got college basketball going. My Aggies went down today. That's sad. They're number 7 in the country. They were playing Tennessee, number 6 in the country, but it was a very close game. Now, to start off with, I am smoking an EP Carrillo Maduro. They say that is a Robusto 5x50. I'm not completely sure about that because I could go with the 5-inch length, but that, I don't know. It just doesn't, maybe 48. But they say 50, so 50. I am first time using my new Herf 2-finger ashtray. Got a little more space in it. Good cut. I almost always do a V cut. I like the way it cuts. So, but anyway, I'm pairing that today with Tula Barton 15-year-old single malt Highland Scotch whiskey. Right down here. Hope that comes across really good on the microphone. I love that sound. We'll go ahead and glass a little bit up. Hey, it's a good day. Gonna be a good day, Tater. My middle daughter turned 16 today. That's kind of scary. I may need to add a little more. Yeah, I hate to see my insurance bills. It's a little different here in Texas, though. It's actually going to be a while before she can even get her permit. She just passed her written test this last week. And then you have to make an appointment to go with the permit. Well, my wife went to get her license renewed. It was expiring on her birthday in September. So she's back in August thinking, all right, well, I'll be able to get an appointment. She makes an appointment in August, but the appointment's not until November. That was the first available. Yeah, that's the way it is around here. It is different than, me growing up in small town. It's, I don't know, a lot different. Anyway, we have had a lot of exciting stuff go on this week. I'm very excited to get out here and be able to talk to you about it a little bit, give you some of my thoughts if you care, and just enjoy a good cigar and some good scotch and watch basketball. So just getting everything pulled up here. I was had to get this is my test smoke and sip. And then I'll do my Sticks and Stones cigar and spirit review, and that'll be in depth for everything that happens here. But I'm gonna go ahead and fire this up. Oh, wait a minute. Before I get all the smoke going, let me give you a little bit about the scotch. Now, Tula Barton has been around since before 1500, 1488, but it was closed for a period of time and reopened in 2003. And they have had some really great releases. They're not all that well known, like, the Macallan and Glenlivet and, Glenmorangie and those, and they put out some very good spirits. It's matured in first fill bourbon barrels. In the nose, you pick up some really nice barley, sugar, a little bit of delicate florals in it. Maybe a little bit of apple and baking spice, kind of apple crumble kind of thing going on. Here we go. On this one, I just get right at it and don't drag it out like I do on Sticks and Stones, where, you're trying to do a 20 or 30-minute podcast about spirit cigar. Here, it's just kind of secondary. Palate, I get some really nice notes of honey, nice sweetness. There's something along the lines of maybe a custard, maybe even some berries in there, kind of a jammy. It's really got a lot of sweet to it to be a scotch. And you also get a little bit of like a really nice cake, kind of a sponge cake kind of thing, flavor going on. And it's really good. All right, gonna fire up the stick. It's been a busy week in Washington. I don't think it was quite as I don't think it's quite as contentious as the previous week. I think you're starting to kind of see things slow down just a little bit, and that pragmatism that I've been preaching about that we need to have, I think maybe some of it's kind of coming out. Now, EP Carrillo makes some excellent cigars. Excellent. He is a master blender. This particular Maduro, it's got a medium profile to be as dark as it is, but the wrapper, it's this dark wrapper, is one of my favorites. I have probably over a half a dozen types of cigars that have this same wrapper, and that is the Mexican San Andres. It is a great wrapper, and I really love it. This is a cigar from the Dominican, and it's got Nicaraguan fillers and Honduran binder. And kind of typical for me with this San Andres is there's some really nice chocolate notes on the puff, on your palate. You get a little bit of a kind of a cherry or woody notes to it. Maybe something like you take the chocolate, and if you put the chocolate kind of in a buttered croissant, all of that creaminess and everything. Oh, yeah. It's a really good cigar. I really like this. I don't think I have tried an EP Carrillo yet that I have not liked. I mean, he is a great cigar maker. Got a little bit of pepper on the retro inhale. Man, all right. I can talk about this all day, but let's get into the real deal. Probably the biggest thing of the week was that the one person that was probably going to be the hardest to get confirmed got him across the finish line, and that was Kash Patel as FBI director. And I'd done some replies or posted some things about him making it, and kind of had the little gif of Clint Eastwood out there, because that's kind of what you feel like is going to happen when he walks in to the FBI. And when he went in on Friday, it appeared like it was kind of he wasn't going to be there long, but he gave a speech, and he really wants to get the FBI back to doing what they're doing, get them back to being an honorable law enforcement agency that is well looked upon. And I think he's going to be the guy for the job. He knows what happens when it goes the wrong way, right? Oh no, having trouble. But he was really persecuted, I guess you could say, back during the whole January 6th thing, and the Dems have been afraid that he's going to want to come back and get retribution. I mean, I think there may be a little bit of that blended in there. How could it not? You're human, but at the same time, he's also like, over and above retribution, there were people doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, and we're finding out now that there were FBI assets in the crowd, and that they were kind of pushing this stuff. Okay, well, that's not what should be happening. That's inciting. That's trying to make what you want happen, just so you can then say, see what happened? When really that was was all manufactured. All right. Quick watch Texas Tech kept saying they had problems. Maybe it was out in Lubbock. That's out in the middle of nowhere. So maybe the satellites didn't reach out there very well. Pitt Notre Dame's playing. That's a close game. But, we've had a really good run as far as, kind of cleaning out the DEI stuff. And, I've heard some people say that, they kind of lean the other way, and they're like, it's just terrible that, there's doing this, and it's just going to be, you're just undoing all of the rights that these people had. No, you're not. They now have the same rights as everybody else. That's the point. All right. We are decades past I have a dream. People today don't care. They don't care what color you are. They don't care who you want to sleep with. They don't care. And if you watch most of the people that do all of their posting and stuff about like the federal employees and stuff like that, they keep saying one thing: merit-based performance. That's what people care about. They don't care if you're lesbian. Can you do the job? They don't care if you're gay. Can you do the job? They don't care if you're black or Latino, or can you do the job? That is where we're at, but it's where the other side of the aisle refuses to say we're at. They want to roll us back to 1963 and 64 and say, but it's because, that's how they have made their bread and butter for the last 50 years. You talk about people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, those people. I mean, that's how they make their living. They make their living off dissension. And if there isn't any dissension, then they have to manufacture some, because that's where their money comes from. I keep hearing that the latter of those two has like a $4 million tax bill that hadn't been paid. I'm like, and if I have to pay $3,000 or $4,000, they're sending me all kinds of letters. Why ain't they going after him? We've seen a lot of Doge stuff. I thought the whole thing at CPAC with Elon getting presented a chainsaw, that's so over the top. There's already enough gaslighting and all that kind of stuff going on. There's just so much theme park built into a lot of this, and that's one of the issues I've had is I'm like, I don't want to see what's happening by seeing Elon tweeting. I want to see what's happening by the administration saying, this is what we're doing. This is what we found. This is, to me, that is not the professional way to do it. But again, you're talking about an autistic individual with ADHD. I do think Trump has done a much better job so far, this administration, at not doing that stuff like he did in the first one. First administration, he was tweeting almost 24 hours a day. And that was what a lot of people didn't like, and he hasn't been doing it that much now. Be presidential. And he can. And he can definitely do the job. But, we've had lawsuits flying left and right. You'll see that this judge ruled that Doge can do this, and then this judge will rule that Doge can't do this, and it just goes back and forth, and it's a lot of up and down for the American people, because you don't really know what to think. You don't really know what's going on, and I understand that. I'm kind of the same way. I did see something this week. It was very lightly mentioned in one article that I saw. But it was talking about force reduction with federal employees. And it talked about Trump's goal to trim 10% from the federal workforce. That was, they're saying, this was Trump's goal. Now, I hadn't heard that before. And that goes against a whole lot of what a lot of other people are saying out there in MAGA land. You know, they're talking about, no, we're going to completely shut down this department and that department, and we're going to cut 1 million people out of work with the federal government. I don't know that. I've kind of been saying, y'all need to temper your expectations, because this is still Washington, even though there's a new sheriff in town. And I think, we need to stop sending money overseas. So if we're not going to send money overseas, don't need U.S. aid, which has apparently been a huge slush fund for a lot of the politicians. I can agree with that. Let it go. Getting rid of the Department of Education, pragmatically, if the federal government is going to stop funding anything that has to do with education, okay. But then, they have to get out of a lot of the businesses, like funding reduced and free lunches for low-income families, just as an example. The whole student loan thing is just a debacle. I've still got student loans. I was never even close to getting any of Biden's giveaways, because I'm the wrong sex or gender and color and everything. I was wrong everything. But then there was a case this week where they said that Biden didn't have the authority to do what he did. I don't think that's going to mean that they're going to go back and all of a sudden all these people are going to have to, owe student loans again. But I don't know, I'm not that close to it. But, realistically, you could end up, if nothing else, like Elon keeps saying about Twitter, you cut like 80% of the staff at education, and whack their budget down to almost nothing. It's it's hundreds of millions, if not over $1 billion. Got to be hundreds of millions. I don't think it's billion, but I could be wrong. The IRS, I am skeptical of the whole tariffs are going to fund us thing. We are our largest department, and this doesn't include Social Security payments and stuff. Just the largest Department of Defense, and they have billions of dollars, and where was I going with that? That sucks. Oh, it was tariffs. Sorry, every so often you just have to take a couple of puffs and reset yourself. I don't think they're going to be able to fund that kind of stuff with just tariffs, especially with what he's talking about, which is reciprocal tariffs on stuff that we're charged tariffs on when we go to this country. So if we send stuff to China and they charge 20% tariff, or we're going to charge a 20% tariff coming back. I don't know that we can I don't think we're going to be able to cut the government far enough that you're going to be able to fund it just on tariffs. Now, I completely agree with abolishing the current taxing system. I was on board back in 2016 with Ted Cruz's file your taxes on postcard. Yeah, flat tax, 10%. No deductions, no nothing like that, 10%. For corporations, it's a lot of money. For you and me, it's not so much, but that's the way it should be. And they talked about national sales tax and VAT tax, this kind of thing. I can tell you from my experience in taxation, VAT taxes are vastly complicated. Basically, At every single point of transfer, that item is taxed. So if a company buys a material, they pay tax on it. They turn the material into a product and then they sell it to a distributor. Distributor pays tax on it. Distributor then sells it to a retailer and pay tax on it. The retailer then sells it to a customer, pay tax on it. And what happens is at every time it's taxed, that entity, the selling entity, has to file a return and remit their tax. And then the purchaser can then offset the tax with tax that they're collecting. It's a complicated system. And Europeans use it. My experience with it was mostly in Puerto Rico, and it was a mess. I went back to the company that I worked for. I went back looking through their old records, and I found $1 million worth of VAT, GST, whatever they called it, that we needed to get refunded. So we filed for a refund for all those taxes. They sent us a bill for the exact same amount for stuff that they said we didn't pay. It's a complicated, messy system. I'm not really down, unless it is just a national sales tax, everything that's sold. Maybe you exempt, like houses and cars, that kind of stuff. But, I still think flat tax is probably the easier, most efficient way to go. And with all the deductions gone, you can. This is how much I made. This is how much tax I had taken out. This is how much tax I should have paid. Here's my refund or my payment. Like 4 lines, you're done. So to me, that's the easier way. But I think it's going to have something like that. I don't think we're going to be able to get the federal government small enough that we can just rely on tariffs. Unless we can become a manufacturing powerhouse that everybody around the world wants stuff that we make. Right now, it's China. China makes almost everything. Excuse me. So I don't see us ramping up that fast to be able to take them on in manufacturing. That's just what they've done. They became the global powerhouse as far as manufacturing. Now, a lot of the stuff they manufacture is crap, but people still buy it. I buy it. You go on Amazon, Temu. I tried a thing or two off there. It was crap. You get like a pair. I saw a pair of shoes that were like slip-on kind of athletic shoes, and I'm thinking, oh, it'd be good. I'm not gonna wear them out anywhere. I'll just wear them around the yard, work. They weren't even worth that. They sucked, but they were like, I don't know, $8, $10. You're getting what you pay for them. So lesson learned. We also had some lawsuits around federal employees, Trump being able to fire them, not fire them, whatever. There's been laws trying to protect federal workers since the late 1800s. I can't remember if it was Garfield or Chester, but there was either an assassination attempt or an assassination, and it was conducted by a person who thought they were supposed to have a job in the administration. And so they started making laws where, when you're talking about like department heads, Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary of Defense, that kind of stuff, those, they serve at the pleasure of the president. But when you got down into the civil service workers, they didn't want those people to be able to be fired on political whim. And if you think about it, nothing would get done. Everything would be constantly in a state of flux, because we just look at the last 12 years. All right. Obama goes out, Trump comes in. Trump gets rid of all the federal employees and hires all the people that'll do his stuff. Then he loses the next election. And then Biden fires all the people and brings in stuff that'll do his stuff. 4 years later, Trump wins again. And all the people, I mean, think about that. I mean, we're not just talking about the department heads. I mean, you're talking about the entire workforce. And I mean, it's right. So in, I think 1976, there was an act passed that even reinforced that. It would make it harder to fire federal workers. And it's all based around them not being politicized. Problem is, a lot of the workers can be politicized, as we've seen with the FBI, you know, all that stuff. I'm trying not to say a lot of names, you know. But I was talking with somebody that I'm connected on Twitter with. I can't remember her name now. If she's watching this, she'll know who she is. I reply on a lot of her stuff because I think she has some really good things. But she did make she made a post, and it was about how she had been kind of treated bad by some of the MAGA people because there were, you know, just some things with the Trump administration that she didn't agree with. And one of the things that she mentioned was the whole telework thing, you know, forcing people to come back into the office. And I'm like, hey, I know exactly how you feel. I've been fighting this fight now for, you know, like 6 weeks. If you can't trust somebody to work at home, you're not going to be able to trust somebody to work in the office. Why? Well, unless you have a supervisor for every single employee that you have, there's no way you can watch all of them all the time. You have to have some level of trust, and then them have a performance-based metric. You have to perform this work to this level, or you don't have a job here. But it doesn't matter if you're doing that at home or in the office. I've worked from home for years, and I'm sorry if you can hear my doorbell going off. She's she's barking at out there. And when I was in the tax world, all right, tax returns have due dates, and I had to make those due dates, or the company got charged penalties. The last company I worked for before COVID, they had $100 million a month in sales. 100 million. You had returns due from the 5th of the month to the 25th of the month. And if any of them were late, you can imagine, $100 million, the average late fee was like 10%. You're talking $1 million in late fees if those returns are late. That gets you fired. You know, I mean, you have one oops, something was wrong, you know, that's whatever. But if you are not meeting your metrics, you're not going to have a job. It's the same thing with the federal government. The problem is that some of these rules that were put in place have kind of allowed people to take advantage. I've told the story about the guy that I saw at a East Coast military base that he worked a 12-hour shift from 7 at night till 7 in the morning, but he only worked from 4 to 7. The rest of the time, he just sat around, watched TV, or slept. And I was like, can't you get rid of that guy? No. The rules say we have to have somebody in that position the entire shift. I'm like, well, can he do somebody else's job? No, because he's unionized. He can only do his job. If he does somebody else's job, that person, even though that person worked, that person can file a time in lieu and get paid for his hours. And I'm like, but he's got paid for his own hours. Exactly. But that means he gets paid twice. So you would end up paying effectively 3 people for the work that 2 people did. You know, unions have some good benefits. I have always been strong proponents of the trade unions, you know, the carpenters, the electricians, the plumbers, you know, that kind of stuff. And they do a really great job for people that college is not their forte. If you're good with your hands, you can go to these union shops, the union halls. You can sign up to get into their training program, and they'll train you. Usually it's 2 to 4 years. And you start out the first year, and you're working for let's just say it's an electrician. You're working for a master electrician. You work for him, you know, 40 hours a week or whatever, they have it set. You're supposed to make X. And let's just say it's $14 an hour. Well, a couple of times a week, you have to be at the union hall, and you're going through night school, learning the book stuff for the job. And then at the end of the first year, you're tested. And if you test on to the second year, then you stay with that master and you get a raise, let's say from $14 to $16 an hour. You go through the next year. By the time you get to the fourth year, you're making like 20 to 22 bucks an hour. And then when you finish the program, you take your journeyman's license, you pass your journeyman's license and get your license, you get bumped up again to like $24 an hour. And now you can work as a journeyman pretty much anywhere you want to. And then you can start working on being, getting your own master license. I see the benefit in that. And that's one thing that Mike Rowe pushes a lot is, the trade industries, because not everybody's meant to go to college. I'm not good with my hands at all as far as fixing stuff. And when I first came out of high school, I was not ready for college. So I had to go to the military for a few years and then go through college. And I did a whole lot better that way. When I first tried out right out of high school, yeah, it was a flaming disaster. It's kind of like that Delta flight, rolled over on the runway in Toronto. That was kind of my first round at college. But after that, and I did some active duty time, went to 2-year school, got an associate's degree, graduated with a 3.1 GPA, and then went on, finished my 4-year in accounting. GPA was still like 2.8, 2.9. Of course, I'm going to school and I'm working full time, got a family, the whole thing. So, I could have done better in grades, but I did okay. I did much better than not being able to finish it. And then from there, I went on to law school. I don't practice. I am not an attorney. I used my law school training in my tax work. So, but anyway, I was talking back and forth with this person. She was talking about the whole work from home thing. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, if a job can be done from home and you can save money on rent and utilities and carrying costs and, all this kind of stuff, then why would you want to spend that money? You're spending money that you don't have to spend. And that's one thing that doesn't make sense with the MAGA people is they want all these people back in the office, but you're like, now you're forced to pay for the rent and the utilities and the networks and the maintenance and all that kind of stuff when you could have just gotten rid of that. It sat there empty for years or close to empty. Well, 56%, 54% of all federal workers had to be at their workplace, which is in an office or out on the border, patrolling the border, whatever. The nurses and doctors at the VA, at the hospitals, they had to be there. And then of the remaining 46%, there was a whole bunch of them that didn't want to work from home, so they didn't. And then what was left, they were in the office more than 50% of the time. So is it really that big of a deal? Mm-mm. No. It was a big deal because somebody made it a big deal, Elon Musk. And that's why I kind of soured on him. I still believe in the whole, Trump, got to get this done. I have become not an Elon fan. There's way too much gaslighting and theatrics involved in what he's doing. And then we had the plane crashes, and they're talking about, the FAA and all this, and Musk's like, I got air traffic people at SpaceX. I can bring them on over. You're like, okay, so now he's going to be doing it. He's going to be doing FAA's work. Plus, he's trying to, with what he's doing, he's basically taking over NASA. He's the one that's shooting rockets and NASA sent one up and they couldn't get the people back down. They're still up there, been up there for 8 months. And that's another thing I've said about him is, yeah, there's probably some of this, hey, good for the American people, that kind of stuff. But don't get the misconception that that's all he has in his little brain. I have never seen a billionaire go, I got enough money. Never. Trump did what he did and lost 25% of his wealth, whatever you want to call it, uh, being president, not taking a pay for it. You know, while he never said, I've got all the money I need, you know that he really feels in his heart that he wants to do this, right? You start seeing this stuff with Elon, and you're like, I'm seeing some potential new contracts in this for him. So I'll leave it at that. But anyway, it was, and what I said to this person was, yeah, it's almost like what we used to make fun of the Democrats for living in an echo chamber and only wanting to hear what they wanted to hear. She was saying it's the same way. She's like, I agree with 90% of what he's done and what's going on. But if there's one thing that I don't agree with, that I'll fly off the handle and act like that I'm a traitor. And I'm like, I know, I feel it. I get the same thing. It is possible. Lean in for this. Let me get the microphone up here really good. It is possible to support somebody and not agree with every single thing that they do. I know that is a mind-blowing concept, but it is possible. I knew I was hearing a squirrel somewhere over there. I hate squirrels. You can probably hear it. I hate squirrels because they try to get in my attic and have babies. And once they have babies in your attic, those babies are going to want to come back when they get grown, and they're going to want to have babies there. When I first bought this house, we've been at 7 years now. When I first bought it, I spent the first 2 years trying to keep squirrels out. Finally got it done. But I watch them because they'll run along the fence, the top of the fence and stuff. And I'm like, where are you going, you little bastard? And comes near my roof, I'll get you. Yeah. That's why when we sell this house, probably be in a few years, we'll decide to get rid of it. Because both the two littles, we have littles and bigs. We have adult children and we have teenagers. Um, when these two littles get off to college, we will get tired of living in the city with this HOA crap. I hate HOAs. That is a whole nother episode right there. I hate HOAs. We'll buy some property out in the country and build a house, acre or two. Maybe have a cow, a bull, and hang on, Mrs. Sticks and Stones. I always stop to answer Mrs. Sticks and Stones. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And I keep mama happy. We are both, I call us retreads, and she doesn't like that term, but I'm like, well, it is kind of true. We're both second marrieds, and yeah, I learned a lot from my first one. The first time around, I was married to a spawn of Satan. Yeah, no kidding. And I learned a lot. The next time around, as the guy in Indiana Jones says, I chose wisely. Come on. And that is, I could probably have a whole bunch of episodes on that. And I'm writing a book, that's for sure. Now, it's going to be a New York Times bestseller, I know it. But anyway, let's see. What else we have going on this week? There was, this may have actually been last week, but I think it may have been earlier this week. time gets away from me. Um, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. There's a picture and some videos of him in Poland with American troops on the ground there. And he's out in the snow running and doing push-ups with them, doing their morning calisthenics. That's a Secretary of Defense right there. All right, that's not one of these generals that sits in his office. No, he's doing exactly what I wanted him to do. If nothing else comes out of this entire Trump administration, he's gonna make our fighting force a fighting force again, and not a bunch of daisies stuck in the barrels of the tanks. No, we are the tip of the spear for the world, unfortunately. And whether we're involved in conflict around the world or not, we have to have a fighting force that can take care of us at home. I knew a recruiter recently in the Army that he hated his job, hated it. And he's like, I deal with some of the dumbest people on the planet. They now have, I may have talked about this before, they have ASVAB camp for people that aren't smart enough to get the minimum score on the ASVAB. Now, minimum score when I took it was like 41. And we would joke about, well, that's somebody that could actually get their name signed correctly. I scored 119. I asked my recruiter, I'm like, was that a good score? He goes, yeah, it's pretty good. That's exactly what he said. Yeah, it's pretty good. I was about 4 to 6 weeks into my 8-week Navy boot camp, and my chief drill instructor, he was calling everybody in one at a time, kind of getting to know you. And he's like, Elrod, let me ask you something. Why did you pick supply? And I'm like, well, they only gave me a certain number of choices, and I just didn't, I mean, that was, I knew I didn't want to be in the kitchen. I knew I didn't want to be in a boiler room. I knew I can't fix things. So this seemed like, like the best choice. I said, radioman, they offered that, but, and he's like, did they tell you what you scored on the ASVAB? I said, yeah. He said, well, did he tell you how good you did? And I'm like, they said it was all right. Like, dude, you qualified for nuclear power school. And I was like, he never said a word. He had a quota. He didn't care if he was sticking somebody, that was like Einstein in sacking groceries. He didn't care as long as he got that slot filled. So, but back then, you didn't get coddled. I remember our drill instructor, we'd have to get up at 4:00 in the morning, and it was like 4:45. He'd come on the PA system. I think we were on the 3rd floor, and he was down in the teacher's lounge downstairs, and he'd get on the PA, and he's like, ladies, it's God. I am on my way upstairs. You better have those bunks outboard and be in the up position when I get there. There was some furniture moving, and we were all in the push-up position when he got there. He would fog up the windows. He'd have us sweating so hard. We didn't do anything. We just got out of bed. Now then, they carry stress cards around with them, and if you pull out your stress card, a drill instructor has to leave you alone. I saw grown men crying in my boot camp. So Pete Hegseth, great choice. Hadn't really got to see that much about Tulsi Gabbard since she's been sworn in, but I know she's going to do a great job. And I really think this does kind of position her, because she's fairly young. It does really kind of position her to springboard onto possibly a presidential ticket, either run on her own, or could possibly, if J.D. Vance decides that he wants to run, which I wouldn't know why he wouldn't, but if he wants to run, she'd make a great running mate. I mean, can you imagine those two? And he is, Ivy League educated, got the whole, hillbilly elegy thing going back. He's a great all-around guy. And then you've got her. She's tough. She's a lieutenant colonel in the Army. She's been on combat deployments. Now she's director of national intelligence. It would be a perfect setup. We're going to look back and we're going to be like, man, Trump was like a master chess player. He was 6 moves ahead. And nobody knew it. But kind of back to what I was talking about with the girl. Uh, I don't agree with everything. Like I said, I don't agree with the work from home stuff. Let people work from home if they can do their job from home, but hold them to a performance metric. If you don't make the metrics, you lose which is what the government employees were told. If you don't pull your weight, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, we can yank your work from home and we'll have you in the office. Or you can go find somewhere else to work. So, I think people kind of overlook that because they have this preconceived notion about federal employees. I mean, I worked with a lot of them in the military, and maybe 10 or 20% were not all that swift. But for the most part, they were, 30 or so percent of them are prior service. They just want to keep serving. They got out of the military, they get a job with the government, they can continue to do their service to their fellow man. I think that's admirable that they want to keep doing that. But and I think I kind of wandered off of this. I was talking about hearing Trump's, I was saying that Trump's goal was to reduce the federal workforce by 10%. And I'm like, yeah, that's not what MAGA's been saying. MAGA's been saying get rid of all of them, get rid of half of them, whatever. But I think you're about to see some pragmatism kind of start working in, and it's not going to be as gigantic as MAGA has thought it was going to be. I still think he's going to do a great job of it, and I think he's going to right the ship and get us headed in the right direction and pare the government down and do a lot of the things. I just don't know that it's going to be on the scale that the MAGA people have thought it's going to be. So be prepared for that. Understand that when you're dealing with anything like this, the art of the deal. You throw this out there, and then they throw this out there, and then you work in until you find a settling spot. You're not going to get everything. Because I can tell you, if he does everything that they say he was going to do, probably by the 2022 midterms, he would have lost a whole lot of Congress, and they'd end up losing the House or Senate or both. The margins are just too slim. You're already seeing now congressmen and senators kind of starting to waffle on some of this stuff. They start thinking about all the jobs that are in their state that could go away. You have to realize when we started this whole thing, several weeks ago, there were about 2.5 million federal employees, 2.4, 2.5, somewhere in there. Less than 400,000 of them actually worked in Washington, D.C., that area. Pentagon with all that right in there. There's Washington, Arlington, whatever those others are. Right. They're all right there. All the rest of them are scattered around the country and around the globe. You have federal employees working on military bases in Europe and Asia. You have, even when I was deployed to Iraq, we had civilian employees that they handled the civilian employees coming in and out. I was at Baghdad International Airport, right on the west side of Baghdad, and they handled their people. All the contractors that were coming in and out, they took care of their ticketing, they took care of loading their bags, they took care of all that stuff. We didn't touch it, and they made about twice the money we did. Now, they were contractors, but when you get over into the, like the embassies and stuff like that, they have people over there that work. They're government employees. And I did hear that Cash has already reassigned 1,000 FBI agents out of Washington. That's a good thing. It was a little odd, though, because the same article said 500 of them were going to Alabama. Alabama? I guess he's just trying to get them to quit. I don't know of anything going on in Alabama that is worth 500 FBI agents. And maybe that's wrong. Journalists have been wrong before. But I could see him going, yeah, I'll send them to Alabama and they'll quit. And probably some of them would. But I don't think you're going to see the mass exodus that they kept predicting was going to happen. I mean, you look at the early out that they offered people. We'll pay you through the end of the year. And they had like 75,000 people, but they were predicting like 250,000, you know, because people are like, why? I want to leave. I'm only getting, a few months worth of money. It's not really clear whether I'm going to have to continue to work or not. And on top of that, there are ethics involved, and you can't just go anywhere. If you work for a particular department and they have a contractor that works with that department, makes a lot of money off that department, you may not be able to go to that contractor. So, and you're like, well, what do you do? Whatever job you had is, well, let's say FEMA would be a good example. Emergency management. All right. States have emergency management offices. Counties have emergency management offices. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to get a job with one of those, because you may not be able to. Or some of the contractors that work for FEMA, you may not be able to get a job with those because of ethics. It's kind of like almost like a non-disclosure. You just, when I was working for CPA firms, if a partner left a firm, he would have to sign an agreement saying that he would not pull his book of work with him, take his clients with him. Now, it was usually like 12 months. But then after that 12 months, he'd go to work, he'd buy into another firm, and then he'd get all of his clients to come with him. I mean, they got around him, but still, that was out in the regular world. But anyway, all I'm saying with all of this is don't get so caught up in the gaslighting that you lose focus on reality. The reality is Washington has been a cesspool for a long time, and they're not going to clean it all out in 4 years, 3.5 now, 3 3/4, whatever. So just be pragmatic about it. I don't see them abolishing the IRS. I don't see them. I see them retooling the tax system, not necessarily getting rid of the tax system. Department of Education may be gone. Maybe USA probably going to be gone. But the rest of it, take everything that Elon tweets with a grain of salt, maybe even a teaspoon of salt. So, well, this has gone on a whole lot longer than I really thought it would, but I kind of got to talking, and that's the way it is. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope a whole lot of people listened. I can't see on my little phone. I can see some writing on the screen, but I don't know if anybody's said anything or not. But anyway, I hope you did see. I hope you did watch it. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did get something, a little something out of it. I wasn't really all that prepared. I just kind of started talking, which kind of seems to be a theme. So there's been a few times where I've had like notes ready, but I'm trying to get there. This is a lot different than my Sticks and Stones, which you should watch too. The cigar and spirits pairing is very interesting, even if you're not into cigars and spirits. But most people are into at least one of those, if not guys, and both. I really enjoy it. But I am a registered libertarian. I am an affiliate for Libertarian Country. You can find a link to their store in my bio with my Sticks and Stones 1 coupon code. You just click on the link and go. Got a lot of great libertarian themed stuff, like kind of, don't tread on me, that kind of stuff. Yeah, go out and buy a shirt or something. Help support the little man. I'm working on some other things, trying to get those to come about. We'll see what happens. I'm trying to get monetized. I'm really trying to get monetized. I have the verified followers. No, I don't have the verified. I have the followers. Verified followers, I'm a little more. I'm about 60% there. So anybody that's verified, tell them to follow me. And Impressions. Impressions are harder than verifieds. 5 million impressions in 3 months is tough. My last 3 months has been about 380,000. I need a lot more. And I would appreciate your support. Keep doing what I'm doing. You know, you may not agree with me, you may agree with me, but it's just kind of fun to hear somebody else's perspective, you know? But until we get to be together again, remember, freedom reigns.